when that committee was talking about what would be good for this program, one of the things that comes up is that one of the most important decisions that a farmer makes is what boat they have. What do you use for a boat? And so I got tasked with trying to moderate a discussion, and we thought about having a panel and have people come up and talk about their boats. But I'm going to try something a little different because what we found was everybody that you asked has a different opinion. And so you run the risk of it having 3 or 4 people on stage that you just hear a little bit from them. So what we want to hear is what your experiences have been. And I think we asked for people to submit pictures of their boats, what they like, what they don't like. And I think some people were a little shy because things they don't like about their boats. They didn't want to show their ugly boat, their boat that doesn't work. We didn't get as much of that as we would like. But we're all friends here. You can say what doesn't work. Like, we want to find out, because the next purchase that another farmer makes here, you can help them make a better choice by thinking about this. So obviously, how much does it cost? How easy is it to use and handle? What scale of work are you trying to do in that boat? Anybody tried working an oyster farm yet in a 8-foot, 9-foot skiff? Anybody? No? Yeah, it's not fun, right? Travel time. So this is obviously how much power and how quickly you can get in and out of your farm, and that depends how far your farm is. Crew comfort and capacity, and I should have put it, obviously depends how many people you have, but you want to keep them safe. You want your vessel to be reliable, and safety. And I mention this because I have a friend back east, up in Massachusetts, that recently posted a picture of himself with his waterlogged wader boots on the bottom side of his boat, bobbing in the water. And you can imagine in Massachusetts in March, that water's pretty cold. And so that was scary. He had a skiff full of oysters coming back from his farm and took a wave wrong, and the boat capsized, the boat flipped. And he was in his waders, and he went overboard, and he is okay. But that is certainly something that, we can get a little rough and ready, and sometimes it'll be fine. But we do need to be thinking about that, certainly, when we make these decisions. Selfishly, also, I'm starting a research farm up at VIMS, and we're thinking about what type of vessel that we might use. We're going to try a 1 acre of flip farm. We're going to have some floating cages and some bottom cages. Turns out it's pretty hard to get one of these shipped from New Zealand and incredibly expensive, so I don't think we'll do that. So we wanted to think about what do farmers use. And so we have some contributions here. Is Tyler still here? All right. So Carolina Gold Oyster Company, I'm going to show you his boat. He says his favorite is how wide it is, how open, it's got lots of room. Had this boat built for the farm, but he does wish he had more power. He was looking for more like 175 or 200 horsepower. So anybody have a boat like this? Typical Carolina skiff? All right. Dewey, you want to comment on it, about what you guys think about it? I think Jordan's got a mic there.
Yeah, I think that it's a great boat, the 24-foot Carolina skiff, flat bottom, a lot of beam. The challenge is staying out of the sun. And a lot of people have put superstructures on these boats, which raises the center of gravity, which causes them to tend to flip over. And so we left the bimini on ours, a lot of stuff to work around, but in general, it's my favorite boat.
And one reason I started with this is, at least on the East Coast, and I think in a lot of the Gulf Coast farms, this is sort of like the Ford or Chevy, right? Like there's a lot of these on the water. Anybody have any other thoughts about the Carolina skiff that they've seen, that they're using? Yeah. It lasts forever, Leslie said.
Yeah, we have the same one, except the layout on that one was the consoles in the front, and we've just about destroyed the front of ours, throwing bags on it. So we're going to change it this year to that. So if you're starting from scratch, that's a better layout than the center console.
Sorry, just so I'm clear, you said center console. Fore, aft, or center or side? Fore is best, and you also like center? Okay, to get it on the side, give yourself more room. Anyone else want to? Yep, go ahead.
I use 2 boats, one just like this, and I also have a boat with the pointed nose. This one's good on calm days when it's smooth, but a lot more room. But when it's a rough day, it rides like a crayon box driving through the water. So If you have smooth water, yeah, it's great. But if it's rough, I don't know that I'd recommend it.
Yeah, you better be able to know how to bend your knees when you take waves in these. So Low Country Oyster Company sent this in. They've just gotten this. This is actually a boat from a company. Where's Can? Where is that? Is it Iowa? All right, so it's a boat company in Iowa. In Auburn, we inherited, we got one through government surplus. They've now ordered some special. What Trey said, he said, it's big with a lot of detail that I wanted. They had no problem doing it. It's got things like everything being flush so you don't snag bags and cages, and it's got a self-bailing deck and a totally sealed hull. So I know the light, I think can you guys see that better in the back on the monitors? Can you see those all right, too? Okay. Because, you know, this is, what I loved about this is we've worked with a lot of gear that bangs up the side of the boats. And one of the things I have not liked about using some of the fiberglass is when I use floating cages and I bring those up against the side of my boat, I've taken a few bites out of the side of that too. And so having something that's as hard as the cage seems like a good thing to me. I like the metal. And I know the light is here, but if you can see on the far side, you can see how much room he's got in the space there. Anybody got a metal boat that they like? Anybody using metal? Because I don't think that's that common. That's interesting because you see anybody who's been like, I know on the Pacific Northwest, like very commmen, right? I mean, that's the standard boat. And certainly you go to Australia, New Zealand, you see a lot of these. I know you can get these made. I don't know how much off the shelf these run. I don't know I can't remember what he got on that and what horsepower. I can find out, I'm sorry. I want to say he's about 24 foot, I think these were. 28. It's 28? Thank you. All right, yeah, all right. I've got somebody you want to talk about the boat?
We've only had it for 2 weeks, so.
So it's still shiny.
Yeah, it took about a year from design to getting it in. But
All
it's
right.
28 feet, 8 feet wide.
28,
Yeah.
28 by 8 feet.
And there's a 150 on it. We want to get a larger engine, but we can't get a larger engine.
And
obviously.
I don't think it shows in here. You guys also put a davit on it too?
What's that?
Do you have a davit on it for lifting? Okay.
It's getting built right now.
Okay.
And then we also use Carolina skiffs as well.
Okay. And do you have like it's too soon to tell if you have a preference?
I mean, no, this one's definitely going to be the preference.
I just know that my text messages have lit up every time Trey gets a new picture of his boat. I get it in my text message
you're
box
the
now,
first
so
one
he's
to
a
get
fan.
it. Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Okay. All right. Forgotten Bay still here? I think I saw them heading out. All right. These guys said they really love the open space and nothing is permanently attached. Their least favorite is the shade foot top is 1 foot too high, so the morning sun still comes in. So basically, I think. Dewey, is that another Carolina skiff that they're using? Yeah, okay. Texas Oyster Company, you guys here in the room? All right. Brad, do you want to talk about your boat?
No. I want somebody who knows what they're talking about. Is Bobby?
Bobby, you here? All right. Bobby, do you want to talk about the boat?
Yeah, we have two Carolina skiffs. This is our 21-footer. It's very windy in Texas, so we use this on the nice days. And plus the steering's on the bow, so you do need to bend your knees quite good. It has a 150 on it, which is good. It's open deck. We have a winch on the side that we use to pull our heavy cages up, and sometimes they take on water unexpectedly to do that. We also have a 24-foot Carolina skiff also. In the consoles in the center. And we actually have a, what's it called, Brad? Rodan, that's it. We have a 96-inch Rodan on the front, which anchors us in one location.
Okay.
That way the wind doesn't move us on our other boat.
So where do you prefer? Do you prefer the console on the side or the center?
I prefer it on the side front.
Okay. And it's just because that gives you that more room to work around?
Yeah, a lot of working room.
And you don't find that presents a handling problem for you at all?
No, I've had it in 30-mile-an-hour wind before. Do not recommend.
Yeah.
But it's good.
So let's talk about the top. How many people have tops on their boats like that? First off, what do you use it for? Like, why do you have that there?
Cage storage. We can carry out 26 baggers on this boat.
Okay.
Instead of making multiple trips, we just fill it up and take them all out at one time.
And what's your travel time? Like, what's your distance? Like, how far are you going?
It's a 15-minute boat trip.
Okay. So you're not looking to do a whole bunch of those trips a day?
Exactly.
Okay. So And do you use any of that for lifting power? You using the, like when you lift, is that the frame that's carrying the weight when you lift? Like, where's the attachment point when you lift
yes.
cages?
It's in the center, right behind. You see the black buoys on the left side of the boat itself?
Right here?
Yeah, and there's a winch right there.
Right there. All right, so that is a weight-bearing frame.
Yes.
Okay. So what do you find with the wind? I mean, does it, it is problematic?
Yeah, it carries a lot.
Yeah. Does anybody else have a top? Because we have debated like what makes sense. Like in some states you're required to have cover, right? Like some states require that you must have cover. So then the question is, what kind of cover are you going to invest in? Is it going to be a solid frame that's got some weight to it, or is it just going to be something that you can essentially like a bimini top, something like that, right?
Yeah, I'm staying with French Hermit Oysters, and we have a solid top, and it's built for lifting, so it's a sturdy frame. We have a winch on board that we can pull up. We do floating cages, 6-bag floating cages, so you can pull those up. They're easy to manage. We also carry a power washer on board to help clean our product, a tumbler on board, and we have a picking box, so we can sort of do everything on board instead of having to get in the water. And so that's what's designed, 24-foot Carolina skiff, and we're pretty pleased with it.
And you like the top on that? In Mississippi, are you required to have a top on it? Okay. All right. The answer was not in Mississippi. Florida, yes, right? Okay. So Little A's, these are some folks who they're up in New York. They're fans of Oyster South. So they've got the favorite thing about his 25-foot Panga is he loves the ride, the speed, and it will hit mid-40s. He loves his composite removable floorboards, really does not like the 6-foot 2-inch beam. So you can see this little racehorse. You know, it looks like a beautiful boat to me to get back and forth to a farm, but this looks more like, to me, I could imagine if I had the budget for it, and we kind of did this at Auburn actually when I was at the Shellfish Lab. We kind of had one boat that really was too small to do any work in, but it was our fast, quick boat. We could get it in the water, go run out to the farm, drop some stuff, grab some stuff, whatever it was, and come back and forth without committing the bigger boat. And there was some utility to that, but it's another boat, it's another motor, another thing to take care of. But it's a pretty boat. Anybody have anything like that they're working a farm with? Go ahead.
Not exactly like that, but we have a Zodiac that is very, very stable and very, very fast. So if we need to get to the farm and it's bad weather, or we need to get out there and in a hurry, it's the Zodiac.
Or deploy a special forces team.
That too.
So do we, you know, I'm sure I've seen it, but I think that for people that haven't, I mean, the first thought would be like with the Zodiac that I'm going to puncture that. Like, I think of all the waders I've gone through as an oyster farmer, every wetsuit of mine is torn up. So how does the Zodiac not get torn up?
Well, it's a ex-SEAL boat, so it'll stop a 7.62 round.
Show off. All right, that's a pretty good answer. By the way, for Oyster South, I think actually any meeting I've been to, this is the first meeting, Leslie, where I've had a train whistle go by and interrupt a speaker. That was cool. Yeah. Okay, Leslie, I don't know who from Cedar Key might be willing to talk about Cedar Key clam boats. So I put up a graphic that unfortunately, like, anybody want to walk through that a little bit? Come on, Leslie.
So this is a modification of the traditional mullet net fishing boat, which was typically wooden, and it's been modified to be the premier highliner clam boat. It's obviously a fiberglass composite, very beamy, open transom. I don't know if you can see that in that diagram. Look at the kicker and the outboard. There you go. So the kicker or the outboard motor is up near the bow. We have very shallow waters at low tide in Cedar Key, and when you load that up with 60 or more baskets of clams, you still can get up on a plane and make it back to the hill. Again, you can see the open transom there, a roller rig on the back, and that, of course, was used to bring in the nets and now is used to bring in the clam bags. And actually, as you see there, a couple of our clam farmers that are diversified into oyster culture are using that also to bring in the bags. Yeah. Yeah, the roller rig on top. Yep. Which also then supports the shade.
Anybody have
So there's a couple of folks in Alligator Harbor that have that and are using it for oyster culture. They're popping them out at like $30,000. Yeah, and that's not with a kicker.
So, one of the things, I remember we went over the class and worked with a couple of the clam farmers and some of the oyster farmers there, and it's just amazing how much weight you can put in that. So if you can't see that in that picture, that is an open transom, and so water is, you're jumping in off the back of the boat, and you're getting back in that way, you're loading that way, and you don't worry about the water, all just washes off. It is front-wheel drive on this thing, though. So I think a lot of people were concerned. We talked about it, again, at the Auburn University Shellfish Lab. I've thought about it at VIMS, of getting a boat like this, because these are tanks, and they work, and you can get them muddy, and they clean easy. There were a lot of things I loved about this, but it is, are you comfortable with the power up in the bow? Because it is a different thing to steer. So anybody in, like, any thoughts or anybody interested in boats like that? Not selling anyone on a Cedar Key clam boat. You got plenty. Crystal Coast, you guys still here? Did I see Kyle? All right, Kyle, you want to talk a little bit about your stuff? Yeah, no. So, Kyle, you had sent in, you like with the cost of yours, the space, that it's modular. You don't like the aluminum pontoons, but you've found a solution for the eroding pontoons. So here's some pictures from that.
Yeah, so we basically built this a year ago, found the pontoons, and then just made it really cheap. I mean, everything on there I can fix myself. We had a nice fancy crane with an electric winch with a button, and it basically eroded over time, and the crane was shocking us, so we just used like a DeWalt drill on a $600 crane we found off of Facebook Marketplace, and it's working great. It's working really good. The only thing that's new is the engine, but everything, and but it's been good. Lots of space.
There's another view of some of your other stuff. So you like the space. So I'm going to get into some other flat skiffs like this. So anybody using a boat like this, a vessel like this on their farm? Anybody want to comment on something like that? So you built this yourself, Kyle, pretty much? We'd be willing to give a ballpark to people of what materials cost for something like this?
So the pontoons we found with the sections, I believe that was $3,000. The wood was probably about $2,500, and then the engine. So I think it was about $22,000 to $25,000 altogether with the crane.
With power.
With power.
That includes the power, yeah.
Yeah, with power,
okay.
with the crane, and yeah.
Okay, great. Ghost Fleet, you guys still around? All right. You guys want to talk about your pontoons, giving space and tours?
Yeah, so we operate 3 pontoons. They're all very similar, but we have basically 2 that are just built for tours, and then we have this one that's for work. The reason we like them is because in our area we have like a marsh with a really shallow. We need a boat that can have like a really shallow draft, so we can pretty much get in at the lowest tides at like 10 inches. So pontoons are pretty critical for us. But other than that, we like the fact that we can also clean them really easily, and yeah, just they're the key. So for us, pontoons.
How long is it to your farm? What's your travel time?
Probably 15 minutes.
15 minutes?
Yep.
So, and does that ride like a beast when it's wave? Yeah? He says a beautiful ride. Yeah. Okay. So even when it's rough, this gives you a nice ride. But so is there any trade-off then? Speed? A little bit. Okay. So for 15 minutes, speed is relative. He's willing to sacrifice some speed for the comfort. You guys are not required to have cover in North Carolina? Okay, so you protect the oysters by having something over the oysters, but not necessarily for the people like you handling the oysters, right? Okay, Shiny Dimes. I don't know if people know Brian Rackley and Miles, the folks at Kimble House, are working to start their own farm. I think Brian said it was okay to use this. He texted it to me when I asked him what I could say. So Brian says, I know historically that boats are always personified as female, but the way I see it is that the sea is your mother and the boat is your dad. Our dad is noisy, drinks too much, looks a bit unkempt, but he always gets us home safe and reads us a book before bed. Literally speaking, it's got a jack plate on it, which has saved our asses multiple times, and despite being a bit top-heavy, it can still get through pretty skinny water. So that's a little bit of Brian from afar. So, this is that the discussion, like Dewey mentioned, and we saw with the Texas Oyster Company, they've got a lot of rigging up top there. And that, it's funny because, again, I look at it as potentially sun protection and the ability to use lift points, but that is a beast for them to handle when the wind is blowing and they're coming up on their lines. They have a lot of issues with that. I hate to put Dewey on the spot again. Anything you want to say about this boat? Have you driven their boat? You don't want to what? Park it? Anybody else got? Go ahead.
It was moored next to our boat. I said that boat was moored next to our boat, and twice we had to pump it out because the wind blew it over.
You had to pump out your boat?
His boat.
His boat?
Ours is a pontoon boat, so it doesn't have to be pumped out.
Okay, so twice that's been tipped over enough they took on water. Okay. All right, that's a disadvantage to that style, maybe.
Okay, I have that boat,
Yeah.
and I've never been tipped over,
Okay.
and I love the extra space
Okay.
and the capacity that it has. I do have a second Carolina skiff for those really, really windy days that I can actually take this one out, park it, use the skiff to run around and get things if I want to work out there, or use the little skiff just to harvest.
Okay.
But this is my beast. It's a real workhorse. I love having the space up on top. I'm eventually planning a 3-bedroom, 1-bath apartment up there.
Airbnb.
Because we all know what it takes to be an oyster farmer. So mine's never tipped down. I keep it in the water. And I'm pretty happy with it, actually.
Any guesses about the difference? Do you think it's the weight of what they've got on top of that?
I don't know. They've
Okay.
taken the top off of there so they can handle it better. But
Oh, that's a good
it was
question.
a learning experience for me to learn how to handle it.
Right.
And I also have 2 hooks on the side. So when I'm working my oyster grow cages, I hook 2 cages up. That stabilizes the boat for me to work it. I can pull out my bags, run them through, put them back in, and it's been a really pretty easy operation for me.
Okay.
I love this boat.
Okay.
I can flip my cages. It's not too high.
Yeah.
And it's really workable. A lot of room.
What's your the frame on yours is made of?
Aluminum.
Aluminum. And I don't know.
It's very similar
Okay.
to this. I've got a ladder. I can climb up on the top, get extra oyster grow cages out, or whatever I need.
Keller, I have to say, when I went down, I happened to be at Cypress Point, and I was out at the marina, and I saw these guys, and I saw their boat, and I loved it because I was like, oh, look at all that. There's so many tools there that you could use for doing the job, and I was really. And then they said they had trouble handling it, so I get it.
It's a learning thing, and I will say that there have been days when I've been out there where I have a whole rack across the back where I can fit 40 bags. I have a rack on top where I can put another 40 bags, so I can stay out there, go through 80 bags without having to switch anything out, go back in. The 3-bedroom, 1-bath, I think will be a really nice added addition because, you can do so much work on it out there.
Yep.
I personally like to work on the water. I don't know how people work on the docks if they've got gnats or biting flies or anything. I don't deal with that out on the water, so that's my 2 cents.
No, we've struggled with that. Are you getting a boat to take your oysters to and from where you're going to work the stuff, or are you getting a vessel that you're taking to the site and is going to be your work platform? And those are different vehicles, and you need to decide how you're going to do it. And again, there were times that I thought, okay, we're taking the boat, we're putting it in we're trailering it up to the ramp, we're putting it in. Now we're driving out to the farm, we're putting all the bags from the farm in the boat. We're driving the boat back to the ramp. Sometimes the boat is too heavy for the trailer, so we're taking bags from the boat and putting them in the truck. And now I'm driving back to the lab, and we're taking bags out. I was like, this, it is tempting to have a platform or a vessel that carries all that stuff to your site.
And I
for sure.
will say, my boat is at a dock in a residential area, so I really limit the amount of activity I have in that area because I don't want pissed off neighbors. And so that's another reason why I do work out on the water and why this is so functional for me.
And I agree with all that. I also say, I'm looking at Scott, because I know both of us have spent days out on the water on a boat where we thought we were going to be doing work, and we're just getting beaten to hell. And we wish we were back on dry land under the cover with the coffee and the radio so we could do the work with more comfort. So there are obviously trade-offs, and you have to figure out for your site how many work days could you have doing that. Let's see. Okay, Matheson, are the Harris, Eric, Sarah? All right. Actually, this is a farm in Virginia, and they said, I like the honesty. Their favorite thing about their boat is it was dirt cheap. The least favorite thing is the payload capacity. It's a great boat for build-out, less so in managing any Oyster payload with winds or swells. It's seemingly dangerous, but I think it was Corey that said, I'm not a good judge yet at this point. So this is their sort of platform, and this is what they're working on. Again, this sort of pontoon-style boat. So to that question, because they're relatively new to that boat, Ghost Fleet, you would say that's not dangerous? Like, you don't think that's tippy? He's like, I'm not taking any liability. How beamy? I don't know. I'm not sure. I've been on that boat, and it's got to be probably 8 feet at least. Okay, Cape Fear, you guys still here? All right. Cape Fear said, so again, they love the deck space and the stability of their boats. They've got 2 of them. They love their 4-stroke engine because it's cleaner and much environmentally friendly and more fuel efficient. So these boats allow them to draft little water and get the work done, but they don't like the lack of maneuverability, and when wind picks up, it tends to each afternoon, and they utilize surface grow bags, so space is crucial. So is anybody else using a boat like this, something like this at their farm? I want to talk a little bit about...
Yeah, we use the pontoon boat. We have a cover, but it's canvas, so we're fully in the shade in Florida. We use SEPA equipment, so we're in the water, so we use a lot of the deck space for storage. We have the tumbler on there. The downside is you have to plan for storms because it doesn't go fast. I mean, it's a 70 horsepower on ours, but it doesn't go fast. You aren't flying on plane. Everybody beats us in. If you run aground, Sea-Tow doesn't like to pull you off on pontoon boats. You have to wait for the tide to come back, pretty much. So.
Are you're generally in the water working and then throwing stuff up on deck?
We get in the water, put the cages on the deck, and then do everything in the shade. So.
And what about the water washover? Like you take like big waves, you get in a lot of water washing over. You get, okay, all right. Scott, is Scott here? Scott sent this to me to demonstrate proper loading and balancing techniques. So, and then I couldn't leave with John Supan. I had to put up his Who Needs a Boat. He's just got floating cages. John's the power. I might start. Do you want to say something, Jack?
The lease next to us, Susan manages hers on a paddle board. She paddle boards in from a boat landing. She'll be towing another paddle board behind her with all inflatable paddle boards.
She's Wonder Woman.
And then she loads the cages up on her paddle board and paddles home. So.
She's bringing her load back as a towing it.
Yes. So.
Okay, so yeah, she's the power, and she's again, like unlike John, who's waiting, she's actually paddling. So, you know, in talking to some folks about this, when I put this out, I think the question was like, is there the perfect workboat? And I don't think there is, because I think it does depend on your farm and what your work preferences are. But we heard fore or aft console. I heard fore. Is anybody in favor of the aft console? And again, this is personal preferences. Is anybody got a good argument for why it should be in the aft? That sounded bad. I just say aft, aft, aft.
I use a 19-foot Carolina, and I built the boat up. I didn't know when I was going to get a davit, so I cut that front part off of the console, shifted it to the back right. The batteries are underneath it, and then there's the back cap, and I have the gas tanks underneath that. So my plan was eventually, so the opposite side of that would a little bit towards the back, but it's still kind of more the center of the boat on the left side, is the davit. And there's been some cages that we haven't gotten to, and definitely just having the gas tanks and the console, that little bit of extra weight on the other side, has probably definitely saved us from tipping over.
So yeah, I've certainly tried to be careful when we lift. We've moved people to the other side of the boat to not pull ourselves under. Something to be aware of. Ideal length, I think that does depend on the farm. Does anybody have a boat that they think is too like? Is there a boat that's too big? Clearly, there are boats that are too small.
We've got a 30-foot Slayer, and it's not too big because it's great to work on, but it's designed for skinny water because we had got shallow water getting there, so it's difficult to control. And I was wondering if anybody's ever put those, I've been grouper fishing where they got the electric motor in the front with the GPS to hold it steady. That would be an ideal thing. And another thing, kind of an accessory would be, WEI had a thing that you hang on the gunnels where you can stand down about a foot lower than the deck. It's not as bad on your back. That would be something I think would be a nice thing to have. I'm thinking about doing that. And then another thing I've never seen, I've heard about, is to keep your boat steady for a longer boat is to have a water pump thing that rotates underneath your bow, where you could kind of stabilizer, yeah. And I've heard of those. I haven't seen one. I don't know if anybody has one here or not. But
got a stabilizer? Yeah. Got a stabilizer? Oh, okay. So, I do think it is just always going to be a trade-off with handling for that. And then the beam, I don't know, I've heard it's supposed to be no more than 8 feet to trailer it. Is that road legal? 9's in Florida, you can be 9 foot. 8.6? 8.5? 8, yeah. So you got to be around that to be, if you're going to trailer it. And I think most people would agree the bigger beam is better for the work with the trade-off on the ride. Fiberglass, aluminum. Anybody doing boats other than that for oyster farming? Classic wooden boats? Oh, yeah? Go on.
We make them out of anything. Steel, aluminum, PVC, HDPE, wood, fiberglass.
Whatever you can find, right? We saw the skiff, the barge. I want to just wrap up with, because I do think a key part of this is the motor. Does anybody have any thoughts about motors and what we should be doing with motors in shellfish aquaculture? 4-stroke, I hear. Electrical motor. We got any electrical motors out there? It's a little pricey right now, $250,000 for an electric motor. An iPilot and yeah. Solar panel to power. And I guess there's a paddle boat. We know people are doing that too. But is there, obviously you need a reliable engine, and everyone's got, I'm not going to ask for brands, yeah, because everyone's got their favorite brands and the brands that work or don't work. Again, that becomes a Ford Chevy discussion. So an electric motor would be interesting. I think in this industry, that would be an interesting thing for us to explore. How much power can it get you in and back is critical, but the idea of having an electric motor with a shellfish farm is pretty intriguing. Clearly, what's that? Go with the tide. Don't. Yeah, I do think obviously there's been a lot of interest in 4-strokes. You saw one of the farmers mention that. Is anybody? I mean, I don't know what the cost difference right now is for 4-strokes. Is there much savings in terms of does that fuel efficiency pay off? If you ultimately, will that pay itself off? Keller says yes. So Keller is saying, does that mic work or no? Okay, go ahead.
It's twice as much with a 2-stroke than a 4-stroke to get out to my lease.
Because you have both 2-stroke
and both are 90s.
Okay.
I have a 92-stroke and a brand new 94-stroke on that big ass boat, right?
Okay, right.
And it takes less gas to get out there with the 94-stroke with the big boat than it does the 2-stroke on the little boat.
All right. So for those, if you're running the numbers, then you're talking about saving almost half the gas. Yeah.
It's
there's
not
a price.
A big trip for me, but
right.
Still, it,
right.
It adds up.
Yep. Okay, that's it's something to think about. Lennon?
I won't live long enough to see this happen, but if gas keeps doubling and tripling, I mean, we may go back. This area is not famous for the Biloxi schooner, which is a sailboat that they used to use for oystering. So maybe Sea Grant should invest in research. We did LNG shrimp boat at one point in the 70s, so maybe we should take a look at what we could do with a hybrid, bringing back the sailboat. That'd be pretty cool to see on the water to start with, and y'all are a bunch of cool people, so I'm sure y'all would be early adopters on this.
And obviously, for some of this stuff, there's also the marketing advantage.
So Bill and I talked about this early in the show. The NAA has reached out to Virginia Tech that has some economists, and we're talking about a project to look at the electric motor option to see what the durability would be, the sort of the cost comparison. How would boats have to be retrofitted if they have to be, or a specific design to electric? So if anybody in the audience has actually really looked at electric or tried it out, we would love to talk to you and involve you in this. And it's a brainchild idea right now. We're just brainstorming it, but I think could be some real promise going forward with that.
All right, thank you. And I'll get John will give the last comment here. Question.
Well, it's not a workboat, but I bought a 3.5 horsepower equivalent Torpedo outboard for my sailboat that I also use on a small fishing boat. It was $3,800 with the battery, and you can get a little extra gizmo on there to have an app on your phone and give you your range, but it all comes down to the faster you go, the quicker the battery dies. But they are expensive. But the Torpedo brand, has all different sizes of engines, but of course then you increase your battery capacity. And so, from a starting farm, that's one hell of an investment to make. You got to sell a lot of oysters.
Yeah, that's a significant add-on to your cost of production. Well, hey, this was, I appreciate people participating in this. I wasn't sure how it would go. I was not intending that we would come up with a solution of this is the boat you should have. But what I'm hoping is that by seeing some different varieties, that helps you. But also, please do at the, like lunch or opportunities at the happy hour, if somebody has a boat that you didn't like, go talk to them. That is one of the things we hope with Oyster South is that we're putting a community together where you can go talk to Keller about her 2-stroke and her 4-stroke, or the Texas Oyster Company. Please, that is what we're trying to accomplish. So thank you everyone for participating in that, and we will move on to Ernest McIntosh is our next speaker.